Well, then, good evening and welcome to this week's episode of the Hempy Hour. I will be one of your hosts, Gina Mama Epps, hanging out with my girl.
Hello, Carter.
She sure is.
And we're actually together today. Last week was weird for us. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't like that. It's weird. Mm-hmm. We live like 100 feet apart and couldn't be on the same camera.
Get it, right.
We are your favorite Hemp Sisters over at the Hemp Sisters Nation. And we pride ourselves on really trying to spread education. And we've been doing a little bit of an educational push on LinkedIn. And through that push, we've gotten some questions from our LinkedIn family. And we're going to pick a few questions the next couple weeks and really go through in-depth answers so you guys really understand what this plant can do for us all.
So much to learn, and it's always a good experience for Gina and I to kind of revisit some of these subjects that we have spent time previously speaking about in great detail,
right?
To keep us fresh, because new information is just constantly coming in, and it's daily. It's daily. As I was saying, this shit's going to take forever.
It's going to take forever.
Say in business, you got to have a why, right? Why you do things, and for me, there's a why, and my why in cannabis is quite easy. I believe so much in the nutrients of this wonderful plant, and I love the term skin in the game. You know, if you're in business and you've got skin in the game, proof's in the pudding. Really blindsided in 2016 with stage 4 cancer. After being told by my family doctor that I had food poisoning for 3 different doctor's visits, and thank God I listened to my wife of going to get another opinion. And, it's one of those kind of aha moments where you're in an ER room and, you got the doctors come out with their pad of paper and they point at a screen and they're telling you there's a giant tumor in your stomach. And you're like, is this real? Is this really me? Is this happening? And,
my God,
reality quickly set in. And, kind of unique is I just had moved from Colorado to Texas, and if we know anything about Texas, they're probably the most anti-cannabis state in the country.
Yeah, that's a hard one.
So things are changing a little bit finally now. But, social media, my wife puts it out there, hey, pray for my husband. He just got diagnosed with cancer. And, if anyone has any ideas on things to think about or benefit, we're all ears. And I actually had a friend of mine from high school reach out to me and tell me about Rick Simpson oil.
Wow.
Never even heard of CBD or RSO, and he says, Josh, I'm sending you a YouTube video. I want you to watch this, but I'm actually going to send you a month of dosages in the mail, and I just want you to start using this. And to this day, I'm blessed. I'm blessed that circumstance happened. I know people typically wouldn't say they're blessed to have had cancer, but I'm blessed to have had cancer. It has shaped me and turned me into the person I am today. And, I went through this aggressive chemo session. It was 5.5 months. I used RSO during my entire chemo, and I'm here. I feel like I came out on the better end of this thing. And this is about 3 years ago. I go to my wife and our family, and I said, listen, I believe so much in what CBD not only did for me, but really what this can offer everybody.
Make sure everyone understands you talked about Rick Simpson oil, and that's going to be very new to some people. And what that is a full extract cannabis oil. So you're using that entire plant medicinally, and it has, we don't even know how many cannabinoids without test results in my face, but it's full panel, full spectrum, and you're utilizing that entire plant. Now, unfortunately, that's not a treatment you can get in every state right now because of the level of THC, but I'm really glad Josh brought that up because it is crucial that people understand how medicinal THC is. And that's why we need to fight for these laws and make sure we're all able to get the same medicine that you were able to get, Josh.
Yeah, and that's why, nothing against this whole, let's call it THC-free craze, right. But I think it's garbage. Any product that doesn't have THC Delta 9 in it, I don't think gives you all the true benefits you need. And that's why I'm a big fan of what full spectrum oil offers.
Many people that are still getting drug tested, they might know what we're saying and agree with what they're saying, but with what we're saying, but won't take the chance on losing their job over a cannabinoid. And it doesn't matter how therapeutic that is. And that's sad. And we need to fight to change.
Today we have a very special guest. Yes, Joseph Reed is with us today. Educator, entrepreneur, philanthropist. He has an incredible backstory that we will let him tell you guys. It's a beautiful story and how he used cannabis to better his life. And then we'll delve into some products that he's working with. And he's also going to be a speaker because of education being his passion. So we're going to introduce you to Joseph and hear a little bit more from him.
We're going by Just Josef today.
Just Joseph. Hey.
Hello, how are you doing?
Good. How are you?
We're getting there.
That's all we can do.
Yeah.
Thank you for fitting us in your schedule. I know you've been traveling and you're on these, D8 roadshow, so to speak, right?
Pretty much, yeah. We start about an hour west of New Orleans, and we're driving out to Orlando, currently stopping in Tallahassee on our way.
Awesome.
Lovely.
Heading to our favorite state of Florida. We hope to be there one day.
Yeah.
I hope to see you here.
Oh, we hope to be there, Joseph. Believe us. Our soul already lives there, but we have to get our bodies there.
Right.
I'm sure.
So if you don't mind, Joseph, if you could, introduce yourself to our viewers and our listeners and, tell them a little bit about that incredible story that you've shared with Lois and me.
Yeah, so I'm Joseph Reed. I'm obviously in the hemp industry. We've been looking for our way into the industry for quite a while. And really, I've got 11 years sober, and it all started with with me going to a rehab facility in Florida, over 11 years ago, and to find my sobriety. Pretty humble beginnings, as many of us have. Just a small town Iowa boy that had bigger dreams and found it in the military, and ended up getting a college education because he went to the military and being able to have like an engineering background. But at the heart of everything, I still had a lot of problems with drug addiction and alcohol addiction, and I was never able to overcome those things. So when I really first started trying, I thought I could just, white luck Clint and put it down and I would be fine. And it obviously just wasn't the way that that a lot of those, it wasn't the way that a lot of those things really work out. If you really want to get sober, you got to get a group, and you got to go to, well, for me anyway, I had to get a group and I had to go to meetings and really have some inflection and things. But for the cannabis related, the mental aspect of alcohol is one thing, but it's really physically debilitating, and it can get very, very bad. And I was 32 when it was happening, and I was getting the physical shakes, and I was getting things like that. So the easier transition for me there was using cannabis here and there in order to overcome some of that. And that really eventually led me to being completely sober.
That's beautiful.
Withdrawal is more, life-threatening than any other detox or any drug.
Yeah.
Cannabis and alcohol, in a substitution, it's usually something much greater, because usually with pain, people are, using opioids and other things for pain management, where that doesn't really quite fit. Alcohol is like emotional pain management, you know what I mean?
Right.
So very different. So I for one appreciate you bringing that in, something very, eligible and available to all adults, alcohol across the nation. And it has real damage,
Yeah, I mean, with that being said, both of my dad's brothers, so two of my uncles were severe chronic alcoholics, and they both lost their life before they turned 50. So this is, I've seen this from a very young age. And like Lo said, I mean, kudos, Joseph, because we've seen the other end of that, and it's ugly. And just bravo, man, because it takes a strong person and to do it, to get through it, to talk about it, to try and help other people not be where you were I mean, that's what it's all about. And that's what we should be all doing for each other.
Yeah.
But I mean, you hit the nail on the head right there. It's all about, it's great that you overcome something. But the first thing that needs to happen in order for you to maintain that is to go out and help the next person that's going through that exact same thing, right? And a lot of people don't realize just how bad it is for your body. If you've never seen somebody in their middle age or higher who are having DTs and they can't control certain things, it's really scary to sit there and watch. And you talk about your two uncles, and I don't know how much of that you saw or how bad it was, but man, the first time I saw that was very eye-opening and scared the shit out of me.
Scared the shit out of me too. For
yeah,
sure.
it definitely keeps a person sober when they see somebody else going through something like DTs and all the other having to go to the doctor for so many different problems that are alcohol related. Listen, I came to the acceptance that I was an alcoholic when I was 16 years old. I first started drinking and drugging pretty heavily when I was 14. And when I was 16, I knew I wasn't going to live to be 18. And when I was 18, I wasn't going to live to be 21. And that's just how I lived in incremental pieces. And I really thought that I was going to be 17 years old and the snow in the ditches was going to melt and they were just going to find my body in a ditch. And that's how I lived as a teenager. And people always told me how different I was when I'm drinking and when I'm this and that. You just don't care, because when you're in that state of mind, you don't care who tells you anything.
Right.
Until you see somebody that you actually value. Right. And then you emulate things that they're doing, and you will kind of see yourself, or I could do this, or I could that, and whatever. And it does. It takes you hearing it from the right person, I think.
And that is another fundamental problem that we all have when we're trying to talk about how cannabis helps us heal, or you know what I mean, or whatever, tackle life in general. So
right.
Yeah.
Well,
I would have to say the transition from opiates to cannabis is, and I've seen it firsthand. Right, like I went to a rehab facility where I was inside the hospital for my first 30 days, and then they transitioned me to an IOP. It was a very long process. It was almost a year long, and each stage you got a little bit of liberties back. I mean, almost like jail, right, where they take everything away. But you need to be stripped of all these things in order for you to realize who you are, in order to realize where you're at, what got you there, why you're there, and ultimately what's really going to get you out.
Right, and what really matters. Yeah, Joseph, I mean, I know you don't know most of us. We both have addiction battles. So I had an addiction issue with Xanax and Valium as a very young 20s, 23, 24 years old. And Lois had her own demons, so we feel this story to our core, and it's changed our lives. We've learned, we've grown, we've gotten past this, and now our whole mission is to educate. And, you're just such a breath of fresh air, bringing in another whole end of what this plant can do and how it can better your life. I mean, it's just so beautiful.
So I've always wanted to get in the industry, right? It's always intriguing. I had a 9-to-5 job. I have an engineering background. And I don't want to say the stigma of the industry or whatever. I just never knew where I could fit in, other than I'm an addict, right? Like everybody, that's how I fit. I'm an addict. But with the brand and things like that, I think that the ones that we have now, if they were around 15 years ago when I really started to try to get sober, I really think I would have had a much faster and easier transition into a sober life that I have today.
Sure.
And I see that with so many different people. And I don't know, with the products that I have, they're more fun as opposed to medical. But I also have to ask myself, what is medicine, and does it make it medicine because it's in a pill? Does it make it medicine?
I'm glad you're saying that, because I told you a few minutes ago, like I started cannabis, I was 23 years old, and I didn't know anything. To me, it was a terrible, scary drug, and that's why it took me so long to even try it. But I finally tried it at 23, and I didn't get all crazy high. I didn't get all this scary feeling everyone told me about. Like, my body evened out. I felt good. I felt calm. I felt less anxiety. So there was not a doubt in my mind. And we were only smoking then. It's 2 decades ago. You're only smoking. We had no clue that this was medicinal, and this is why I was feeling so good and it was working so well for my body. But now 20 years later, with all the the education under the sun, we know that it was literally my body balancing out. It was my body coming to homeostasis and getting to this place I had never been, and the severe anxiety that was crippling me was non-existent. Like I felt like a new person. So, we didn't know then it was medicinal, but there's no doubt this plant's medicinal no matter how you're using it.
Correct. And you go into any, like the Walmart pharmacy or, wherever you go to get your regular medicine, right? Your cold syrups. But that's what you have. You have effervescence that you drop into a water and it fizzes. You have chew tabs. You have soft gels. You have all those things. Well, now we have the exact same things that's in the cannabis industry. And even those get knocked down too, because, it's not FDA and it's not, but how are we able to get FDA if you have specifically knocked down research for the past 50 years?
Right. And then there's people like Lois and I who see FDA approved and we're like, whoa, that's scary. What if the insert of the thing is blank? If the insert is blank, should you blindly inject that into your body or no? Well, anyway, where were we?
I agree with you completely on the truth in labeling laws, right? And I have yet to run into anybody that's like a real manufacturer who says, yeah, we want to pump all this out there and we just, we don't care about the people. Like it's very few people do I actually run into that are like that.
Right.
Especially from our side, from my side, that's whether a vendor or a manufacturer or this or that. But we still don't really know what we're getting when we go to that Walmart pharmacy and we're getting some cold medicine off the shelf because they don't put anything on that label either.
No, or you'll get the proprietary blend of fuckery.
That's it, everything, and maybe next time I'll tell you the story behind Just Josef.
To make products and educate, that I know is sometimes a hard story to tell, but from the other side here, it's one of the most identifiable stories to relate with people. So take pride in that, continue using that. I never wanted to be known, and I'm not known as a person that was an addict, and I don't particularly wear that label, right? To talk about cannabis, but people do, right? And people can understand that and they can relate to that. So no matter, I know it's uncomfortable, right? But keep leading in that and lead that light, you know what I'm saying? And let that guide you, because you're going to help a lot of people by just saying that. You may never
more than you'll ever know.
Good evening and welcome to another episode of the Hempy Hour. I am one of your hosts, Gina, Mama Epps.
I'm Lolo Carter.
And together we are your favorite Hemp Sisters over at the Hemp Sisters Nation, where we pride ourselves on unconditional love, support, education.
We're going to give it to you today as well.
And just the love for humanity. We really want to bring people together and teach about this plant. And with that being said, today's episode is a few different questions that we got from our LinkedIn family. I had done a video and asked for questions that Lo and I are going to answer one by one. So we're going to take the next few weeks and do this. We're going to answer all your hemptastic questions. And today we will start with Doreen.
Yeah. You do have quite the inquisitive audience.
I do, and I love that.
All of the right questions are being asked.
Yes.
It's really cool.
Doreen would like to know, does hemp or cannabis help to reduce migraines?
Yeah, so it's probably best to start at what a migraine actually is.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, I agree.
So if you're a sufferer, you need no introduction. Like us periodically.
Right.
But a migraine is a recurrent throbbing headache, and it typically affects one side of the head or the other. It's often accompanied by nausea and disturbed vision. You can have symptoms that would include, sensitivity to light, sound, smell, touch, again, nausea and vomiting, lightheadedness, pass out. It's torture. Depending, blurred vision is also accompanied with migraines, and it actually affects about 12% of people. It's very common, including children, and women, have higher occurrences of migraines than men
Now, do you think that's because women have so much more on our plates?
Yes, we do. And our hormones are constantly serving us a delicious recipes.
Welcome to your 40s. You've never been ready for this.
Just put me in 10 years, Mom. One of the things that's unique about migraine sufferers, like unlike getting a headache, you actually most people get like sensory warning symptoms. Right. And these are called auras. So when you're constantly having migraines, you start to have these clues prior to the onset of the headache. And then that's actually something that's also runs in families as well. So
genetics.
Yeah, we're constantly at a fight, know it. Most treatments for migraines include a drug family of, they're called triptans. Secondary to that would be alkaloids. Triptans are more expensive in treatment, and your insurance company is going to cut that off. Alkaloids are the less expensive version, but they, don't work as well. They both primarily work by blocking the release of pro-inflammatory compounds in the brain. So this is what causes the pain of your migraine. It's the inflammation. Unfortunately, the side effects that come with these top two drug choices include rebound headaches, tightness, pain in the chest, dizziness, nausea, vomiting, overall body warmth, like a reaction through your body, redness, and then tingling under the skin.
Nothing like a headache to help your headache.
Thanks, Big Pharma. Right, just bring it down and cope with it, right? And the tingling under the skin is really something that can be very annoying. Yeah, again, we look at risk reward, right? So this is where kind of cannabis comes into play, right? So when you're looking at where you get pain from migraine is the inflammation. So while there's limited research about the mechanisms behind why cannabinoids alleviate migraines, anecdotal reports, show that it does. Right. So this kind of took researchers down a path when they were looking at diseases like migraines that don't really have a etiology, like they don't know where they are stem from. They know what the effect is, but the precursor events it's hard to track. So this developed the endocannabinoid deficiency theory. So migraines are shown in recent studies that abnormal inflammatory responses are the cause of this. Now, our endocannabinoid system exists within your body to maintain homeostasis, which is our balance.
So it exists in all of their bodies?
All of you that are hearing this now, even the pets that might be laying around you are privileged to this master regulatory system. Right?
How about that?
The more you know. Where's my bit of rainbow? So when you're tracking a migraine, it starts with a trigger event, right? Such as a bright light, hormones, we discussed that. Even some people, certain smells of foods can actually trigger an event. So what happens though?
We can relate to that being pregnant.
No, right.
Very similar.
100%.
Very, very similar.
100%.
Like your hormones will potentially destroy you. Anyway, carry on.
I know. Go there.
I know, don't go.
So what happens is that this particular trigger event in somebody that's prone to migraines, it causes an imbalance in the brain, right? Which, when that happens, a normal functioning body should trigger the production of endocannabinoids that
which our bodies naturally produce.
Which our bodies naturally produce, okay. Correct. So we have, so that's supposed to happen. This actually will then create balance in the situation. Whenever the trigger event is causing the negative reaction, it's now to bring balance through these particular systems. Now, when your body is deficient in the production of endocannabinoids, because endocannabinoids are made on demand, right? For these types of reasons. We need it now, we need it now.
Right.
So when your body's deficient of the quality and the production of endocannabinoids, this imbalance that's happening continues. So this is where the migraine develops, right? If it goes into a migraine headache. So the trigger now has gone into a migraine headache because it's not getting the endocannabinoids to hit the receptors to stop this process.
For pain.
And pain is the result of that, because inflammation, as we know, equals pain. So
that's in our entire body.
No, that's everywhere.
That's everywhere.
Right. That is the natural response, inflammation, for any threat we have, whether it be immune or whatnot. It's our body's process. So that basically what happens in a migraine, it becomes out of control, right? And this is the resulting pain. So now studies that show that endocannabinoids, which are cannabinoids that we make ourselves, and then cannabinoids, which the term is kind of loosely, it should be phytocannabinoids if we're talking when we're talking about cannabinoid therapies, right? Phytocannabinoid. What those studies showed is that the receptors, the cannabinoids inhibited receptors that control these symptoms of vomiting, the pain, and they actually work to block the symptoms from occurring. THC, which
my favorite,
it's the favorite, but it's also the most misunderstood cannabinoid because of
it's the root of all the propaganda on this plant. Right. This one cannabinoid is literally the root of the last 80 years of hell for us.
Right. Thousands of potential constituents to this plant, and we are divided over one or two, psychoactive components, which we'll kind of discuss. I mean, it's the level of THC really controls that type of experience. Right. So, but THC actually reduces serotonin release. So this is blocking pain, vomiting, nausea, and cannabinoids are found to bind to the area of the brain that modulates this pain transmission.
That's so cool.
No, it really is.
Science.
Right. Like you're right. The plant is replacing something your body makes to help you
Beautiful.
Beautiful, harmonic. So basically, the brain. So the cannabinoids bind to the area of the brain that is modulating the pain transmission, and this is kind of where we find where migraines are generated. Following another study, they had 3 cases that were reported of heavy, like a chronic, heavy user of cannabis, and them developing.
Right. So, which people like to turn into an addiction.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah, good point. That's not what happened, because in this study, they were basically showing that people that were on medications, that we mentioned the triptans and alkaloid medications, when they also abruptly stopped, severe migraine attacks, continued.
Interesting.
This suggests that these rebound attacks after stopping a therapy that is helping you with your, cease or lessen migraines, that they're working on the same mechanisms of action, right? One has side effects though, while taking, and one does not. They also looked at genetic factors within these case studies that allow for increased inflammation. So some people are genetically prone to have increased inflammation, and that particular those genes were present in migraine patients over the control subjects in the group as well.
Super interesting.
Right. No, so continuing to tie information.
The root of all evil. Honestly.
Endocannabinoid presence, all of, in this study, they were decreased in patients.
Wow.
That like over-the-counter medications that people were using for headaches, basically suggesting that endocannabinoid dysfunction was actually involved with the migraine condition. That's really interesting.
Very, very.
We did talk about Dr. Russo briefly, but that this actually, like migraines, fibromyalgia, IBS, these are all inflammatory response, conditions, diseases. That at the heart of that is endocannabinoid. So it's really interesting. Cannabis has been used for thousands of years to treat headaches.
Thousands of years. You guys hear that?
Yeah, like
not last week.
Squared.
Not once the world started to catch on.
No. Medical cannabis patients find less nausea and they have better sleep. They also report less frequency and less severity of their migraine headaches when they use cannabis. And knowing that the triggers for migraines are things like sleep deprivation, anxiety, and stress. Cannabis works to relieve those events, right? So when you have,
that's a trifecta of why I use this plant.
so if you relieve the causes, triggers of your migraines with cannabis, what does that mean in the end? You don't create the environment where migraine can actually form.
Right.
And that's where cannabis is super unique because we're kind of
You can be proactive. Stop it before it starts.
Yeah, exactly. And unique to the fact that all of our medications that we have are to treat symptoms,
Right.
which address the root cause.
Right.
When you learn about the conditions or things you're facing, where cannabis can actually get to the root portion of that, where your disease starts and why your disease starts.
Right.
I mean, it's a no-brainer.
Incredible.
So there's no question, during the cannabis helps cease and even lessen severity of migraines, especially if you take it when you have on the onset of the pain. Regular use of low dose products that have THC significantly reduce severity of headaches. We talk about that because, in legal hemp products, a full spectrum product will have a legal amount of THC.
Right.
That number and that amount is decided based on, it's not going to get you high in the traditional sense, right? But it's going to get you, what is it, healthy?
It's going to get you healthy.
Get you
Healthy, not high.
Healthy, not high.
There it is.
And you can use either high THC or even just regular CBD products that have a full spectrum of cannabinoids and they have not been depleted of the natural constituents of the plant. And you would do that if you have a headache that comes, you would want a rapid onset of delivery. And the best way to do that would be like through inhalation. Second to that would be sublingual.
I'm really glad you brought that up because I'm someone that suffers from chronic pain. And like Lo just said, when you are in intense pain, you don't necessarily want to wait an hour plus for a sublingual tincture to kick in. So you're going to use a quick little, a couple hits, smoke a little bit. You might dab once or twice. You might use a vape pen because then you're getting the immediate effects. But then once, you get a little bit of that relief, then your tincture kicks in and now you're where you're supposed to be. And that pain is gone, the inflammation is gone, and you've stopped what could have ruined your entire day, if not two.
Right. I think we have to also cannabis, acute pain and chronic pain are two very different things. Right. We have some really magical things to help us with acute pain. Right? Like I was in a car accident, injured, and I need to get it's an immediate, it's a very stressful event, right?
Right.
There's medications that are there to do that. When you are talking to people about chronic pain, opiates and things are not the answer. They can't be because the long-term effect of these things is
detrimental.
Right. That's right.
Right.
So it's really important to start really long-term sufferers in getting them into other methods.
Yes.
Because cannabis is about helping the body help itself.
Well said.
And other things are just really trying to get you through these events and things, but they come with their own risks and rewards. So
absolutely. So Doreen, I hope we answered your question about cannabis and migraines. They absolutely 100% cannabis will help you your migraine, and we hope you'll reach out to us. We can recommend a starting point for you. Let's have a conversation and let's see if we can get this plant into your life and help you get a little relief naturally.
Yeah, that's its number one side effect, really, for things you didn't even know you had wrong with you.
Right. Keisha would like to know, are there any risks or precautions that people should be aware of?
It's like our gut wants to tell you no, but there are some. When we talk about like risks, we kind of go to that whole like prescription drug definition of risks. But
Right, just what people are used to.
Yeah, it's the terminology that we're indoctrinated to, yes, this drug will A, B, and C to your heart and your liver and your kidneys, and no such findings with cannabis, right? However, it's not uncommon for over-counter drugs and prescription drugs to interact with other compounds.
Sure.
And cannabis is where we can find some precautions, right? So prescription medications have interactions with lots of things like caffeine. Certain foods, grapefruit will make some, medications not even work in your body. Alcohol is a huge influencing factor, if you're a person that's ingesting CBD oil, cannabis oil, it's important to be aware of some potential interactions that you'll have with prescription drugs. So again, not what you're used to hearing as far as a precaution or interaction. It's really comes down to that cannabinoids, cannabinoid therapies influence how, it's part of your metabolism, right? So including your medication. So certain cannabinoids like CBD, for instance, can interact with prescriptions. It's not common, not totally common, right? But generally occur when it's used at higher doses of CBD oil. And any interactions are relatively mild. One of the interactions that CBD can have with prescription drugs is inhibiting the enzyme system of your human cytochrome P450. It's fancy talk, but liver. The P450 system is an enzyme family that's found in the liver, and it's involved with metabolizing over 60% of medications that you're going to take. So it's important because doctors determine how they dose you on your prescription medications based on processing times within this particular system. Right. They make calculations for your heart medication based on it, or other very important system medications. How long the amount of time that it's going to take for the medication to work and be processed through the P450 system. So if only one drug is being ingested, the P450 system, and it's healthy, then averages can provide accurate dosing. Certain substances or an unhealthy enzyme P450 system is really going to affect how the drugs you're taking are processed, and they're going to metabolize slower or faster in some cases than they would do on their own. So researchers have found that through clinical trials, CBD inhibits certain enzymes within the system. And that affects the way your body processes certain drugs that are made to be metabolized through the P450 system. So CBD essentially inhibits that enzyme, making the medications that you're taking for this, if they work on this particular system, they metabolize slower or faster.
I have an actual, a little personal story about this. Yeah. Less than 2 years ago, I had a pretty large surgery on my hip. I had a huge tumor removed, and I had all these pre-tests to make sure I was, healthy enough to go into surgery. And my blood work came back, and my liver enzymes were through the roof compared to the doctor. Now, we consulted our doctor on our team, and he's like, that's because you're using cannabis. That's not even remotely a red flag. So I go back to the doctor, try to explain to him that, I use a bucket load of cannabis a day and my liver's just processing it like I'm good. Let's get into surgery. Puts off my surgery. Finally, after a million more tests, decides because I stopped cannabis for a day. Was it one day? One day I didn't use cannabis. Came back the next day. My enzymes were all the way down. He's like, all right, you can have surgery. You've cured yourself. Absolutely insane. I think
actually we even armed you with a research paper on that.
He would not look at it.
It was like from his peers. It wasn't like I made that or no.
So anyway.
Yeah, which that brings us to being honest with your doctor. But, yes. There are certain drugs, that you should not take with CBD, especially CBD, but certain steroids, calcium channel blockers, antihistamines, immune modulators, benzos. antibiotics, anesthetics, antipsychotics,
Anti-beta
blockers. Really the studies show that higher doses of CBD have more of a chance of making certain medications not metabolize as your doctor wants them to. But it's a good start knowing if you're taking a medication that might hit that list, and then bringing us to this full circle about no reason to hide legal products from your doctor, and even illegal ones, right? Again, like you're on a, your health practitioner is supposed to be on a team for your health. And transparency, no matter sometimes uncomfortable, is really key to you having successful anything. 100%. So when you're supplementing with anything, they want to know, are you taking vitamins? Are you taking mineral supplements? What are you taking? Because anything that they do, they have to consider these things.
And what are you taking and what's it doing for you? Because I'll always tell them I use cannabis, and they'll ask me, like, what's it doing for you? Less pain, I'm more active, less inflammation. I'll go on and on, but they write it down. Now, whether they do anything with that information, I don't know.
Well, and
it's important to share.
Yeah. Quite frankly, and it's funny you say that they're writing it down. They haven't had a lot of it training on this stuff. So I think it's interesting to see them collecting their own anecdotal evidence, drawing interest. If 5 people came in saying the same things, maybe that's influencing a doctor to learn about something and outside of their comfort zone. So talk to your doctor if you're on any specifically, especially if you're on prescription medications, about using any amount of cannabinoids, but especially if you're really diving into heavy doses. Yes.
So Keisha, we hope we helped you a little bit on the risks. We'll use that term loosely, but the precautions, because it is important. It is important. So again, please reach out to us. Please, let's have a conversation. If you're thinking about starting just a daily supplement just for your, overall health, let's have a conversation and let's try and bring this plant into your life. Thank you so much for the question. Alrighty, guys. Last question, and this comes from Robert B. and Philip H. And Robert Philip would like to know, what is the biggest health benefit for who and why?
A loaded one.
That is a loaded one. Do either one of you have a spine by chance?
This is the first requirement for cannabis working for you. It is found in all vertebrates, the endocannabinoid system. And that is the key reason why hemp cannabis helps support your health.
All of your health.
All of your health. Maybe best to just kind of quickly review some of the components. Because again, this could be we have a 287-page training about this. So
something tells me you don't want to.
Let's break this down into a 5-minute segment. Yeah. But understanding the difference between, so you have the endocannabinoid system, and within there are neurotransmitters and receptors. Neurotransmitters being endocannabinoids. And an endocannabinoid is a compound that our bodies make all by itself.
Naturally.
We produce them, and it's for one simple reason: to bind to cannabinoid receptors within our endocannabinoid system.
In our body.
In our body. They're the glitter. So what does that mean, right? So the endocannabinoid system is a regulatory system. It's actually a master regulatory system. We have, what's one of the regulatory systems? Like you have
your nervous system.
You have a nervous system. You have your respiratory system.
Right.
ECS, the endocannabinoid system, is the parent of all of these systems. Yes. Its job is to use endocannabinoids and their receptors, which are CB1 and CB2 receptors mainly, to communicate, to bring balance, and we call it homeostasis, to
balance.
Homeostasis, right. So this is basically everything from regulating your body temperature to controlling inflammation, your immune system functions and responses, your neurological functions and responses. All of these are using endocannabinoids and cannabinoids to make it all work. Now, phytocannabinoid, we're going to call it a cannabinoid, but its true term is a phytocannabinoid. When you receive a cannabinoid from a plant, it is a phytocannabinoid. And this is what one of the major mechanisms within cannabis that actually work with this system and work with the receptors that your endocannabinoids can actually match with. There's atypical receptors as well, and that's for another day. There are other receptors, valenoid receptors, et cetera, that actually work with the system to control different functions. But phytocannabinoids, that's where you get from cannabis, and over 80% of identified cannabinoids are actually exclusive to cannabis plant. Yeah.
That sounds like we need them in our body.
That one's pretty, that's pretty, that's a controversial plant. There's actually cannabinoids you can find in like cacao, right? So they're in the things that we eat anyway from the plant world. However, okay, so how the system works is it has to be engaged, right? Your body has to be making quality endocannabinoids, and the receptors equally have to be able to receive the messages and communicate these functions. A highly engaged endocannabinoid system is truly key to achieving homeostasis, and the endocannabinoids that we make are responsible for keeping it busy.
Well said.
Right. So one of the shortcomings of endocannabinoids, though, is that when we make them on demand, and they last at receptor sites for a very short time. Things can influence that. If you're high in stress, and your body is continuously making endocannabinoids to hit the receptors to bring you out of stress state, the fact that they are short term on the receptor site means you're not getting the longer term relief for that. And now you're over stressed out, you're overworking that system, and it's not, your body can't produce what it needs to keep these receptors plugged, right? So this actually in turn creates insufficient activity within the receptors of your body that are supposed to be maintaining homeostasis, and your body begins to deregulate, and you start to fall further and further from homeostasis or balance. The less receptor site activity over longer periods of time, and then now you start to have more delicate internal balances start to fail. And this is where you're going to start to see results that are primarily mental and physical challenges, and where illness can develop. There's one prominent cannabis researcher, not one, but one that is really responsible. His name is Dr. Ethan Russo.
He really brought it all to light.
Yeah, he brought it out of the light. His studies, he proposed a theory of somebody being clinically endocannabinoid deficient. He found supporting evidence that people that were diagnosed with certain conditions, they had lower levels of endocannabinoids. This was a common denominator for these people that were suffering these conditions.
What kind of conditions?
And his studies, it's fibromyalgia, migraines, IBS, certain fertility issues.
I can't imagine what percent of the planet deals with those conditions. It's got to be through the roof.
Right. Those also have in commonality that there's no defined etiology, right? We treat symptoms, right? We know that these are inflammatory. Inflammation is at the highlight of most of these diseases. Inflammation is at the very foundation of every process that we have, basically. And it's also, inflammation is at the base of every disease on this planet. That's a fact. So he, in his studies, he looked at this and he said basically from his research that, okay, I'm going to tie this together. If you're deficient in endocannabinoids or the production, those processes, or in the production of cannabinoid receptors, this is why when you're supplementing with cannabis that they're getting proof of effect of alleviating some of these conditions. And that is marvelous research, and most research today continues off the back of that when we're looking at the endocannabinoid system. Lots to dive into there, but in general, Robert and Philip, the biggest health benefit cannabis can bring to you is supporting your endocannabinoid system, optimizing your health through supporting your endocannabinoid system. It's more delicate than we think, right? It's affected by diet. All of these neurotransmitters, like 85% of the neurotransmitters for the system are created in your gut. And knowing that your diet is a huge component to your ability to achieve homeostasis, right? So
Very good. So that's our why, and we already talked about our who is literally every man, woman, child, and any animal with a spine. We all have this system, and we have to make sure it's working for us and not against us. So huge thank you to Robert, Philip, Keisha, Doreen. Thank you guys so much for these questions. They're incredible talking points. Please reach out to us. We would love to help any of you, recommend anything, have a conversation. Let's get this plant in your life. Tell a friend, tell a loved one, and let's keep the education flowing.
Yeah, send us your questions. What's on your mind?
Yeah, let's talk, guys.
Challenge us.
Music for me saved my life because I grew up in a very violent home. It was really weird, you know. We went from living in this poor kind of thing, and you know, my dad had went to college and through the military, and he came out and he was able to, you know, in the 70s, you know, do great things to take the family from that spot into this really upper middle class neighborhood. Matter of fact, I remember being in second grade when the Mayflower truck pulled up, man. People came out their houses standing there like, what the hell's going on here? You know, because we had gotten to the model home. You know, we're in this neighborhood, but the sad part about it was, although my parents had elevated themselves, in that elevation was a lot of hurt, a lot of just uneasy things for them to be able to deal with one another. So for me, I saw that as a kid, and I spent a lot of time in the basement listening to music, right? I mean, I must have listened to records more than when I realized I could play an instrument. It was all about listening. I think that was our early developing tool.
Sure.
I just listened over and over and over to what was going on the records that I liked.
Was it the lyrics or was it the actual sounds? What influenced you more? Was it people sharing their stories and identifying with their stories, or the music, or maybe the two together making it impactful?
I think it was more, I didn't get into what lyrically people were saying until way later.
Okay.
What always, and I feel this way today, what drives a young person into liking what they like is the beat, or the tones, the frequencies, the way that it's hitting you, right? And so, like, man, I didn't realize I was what, 18, 20 years old, what they were really talking about on Hotel California.
Right.
It's a very demonic song.
Right.
I know, seriously,
Like
on the back of the record album, you know, when they showed them in the lobby down there, up in the balcony, if you magnify it, there's Anton LaVey, the head priest of Satan's Church.
Church, yeah. I was like, Satan's Church.
Yeah, so, you know, I didn't know that, you know, for me, you know, I'm listening to the guitars, how, you know, and the arrangement.
It's all chill and soothing, right.
And see, this is where we're at right now, man. When you listen to trap, I love the production of trap. I just don't like what the artist is saying.
Yeah.
It's their prerogative to say it, but I think there's something really crazy going on where a guy gets on a song, and ladies, please don't take this wrong.
But you're gonna have to try to offend us, Kevin. Don't worry.
Remember, Chicago native.
Okay, so the guy spends 3 minutes and 50 seconds on a song, and all he's doing is explaining 50 different ways about how he loves a woman's vagina.
I mean, Paul Simon at least had 50 different ways to leave your lover. So like, there was purpose in that song.
Right, now we've got
to get the fuck out.
You know?
Yeah, now we've got to 50 different ways of explaining a woman's vagina.
Yeah.
And it gets really crude. And hey, man, the women are doing the same thing now.
Oh,
the
sure,
women, rappers, yeah, they're flipping it and talking about, you know, what they're doing with the guy. So
But yeah, there's a difference because, you know, we go through this because we're 70s born children. And,
Right.
you know, there were songs in our day that, again, it's like when you watch a cartoon, like when you watch The Simpsons, you're like, oh, that has a different meaning.
right.
You know what I mean? Like, I didn't see it as a kid, but I see it now. Perspective changes everything. You know,
we grew up with 2 Live Crew. I mean,
I literally,
Right,
I literally was, that was my embarrassing moment for my sister driving her to school. I'd be blaring 2 Live Crew through the parking lot. So like, you know, it's, again, what I don't like about a lot of this is that how we're turning that into something that empowers women.
Yeah.
You know, it kind of shifts, and it's like, your sexuality is your sexuality, you know, empowering it and telling a 13-year-old girl that's how she, you know, gets attention in the world, and that's her superpower, might be the wrong message. You know what I mean?
I would say so. You know, it's equivalent to what happened during, like, I would say between 2008 and I would say like around 2015. You know, we
Lil'
had
Kim to Nicki Minaj, right?
yeah.
Somewhere between that thigh gap.
This room right here, you'll have to excuse the fact that it's junky as hell. But this is
Hey, Diggy. Jesus.
This is the red kit,
Yeah.
and it's acrylic. It's see-through. Actually,
Yeah, it is.
it's the drum heads are colored red, so they give the appearance that the drum set is, you know,
Transparent, but it's not.
right. Yeah, man. They have they have a really nice pure tone, and I've spent a lot of
put
time.
in work.
Yeah, it's a really cool.
I was like, Gina's over here, her hands are already like flickering.
Like, oh my god!
I'm having to buy her a bongo after this.
And you know, the kick drum, man. You know, the booty shaker right there.
Yeah.
It's got a nice.
Shake it, don't break it.
My cousin
Yeah,
Vinny's the only person I know, a drummer. You know, when you get in a room with a drummer, it's just, you just don't talk anymore. You know what I mean?
It's like you feel it in your heart.
The percussion just, you know, either you want to like pick up an instrument and get in on it, or you just want to stand there and like feel it through your body.
Feel
like
it, yep.
It's really cool. You know, Sadie came in here because her brother is a drummer. So she came in here one day and she started rocking a beat, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna sample that and we'll make a song around that. She had a
awesome.
beat.
I was like, wait, your hands free right now. Give us like a 10-second lick. Do it.
You got a little something.
Like you got 2 hands open right now.
I'll have to play with these because I don't want my neighbors calling the cops. Yeah, that's why the electronic kid in here is such a
Just hear it in the headphones.
But, I like to keep my beats a certain way and simple, right? Because I'm always thinking about songs and how that beat may possibly move people. So like a boom bap beat, like. I don't really, you know, I used to be one of those type players that I was very chop orientated, but lately, man, I realized that don't make people bop their heads so much.
No, you got this maturity to it too. It's there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I just sit here, I have fun. I'm at peace with it. And man, I just want to keep creating for as long as I can continue to do it. Check this out. We had this situation start to become a big spoken about thing, which was the level of abortions that was going on in our country, and predominantly with younger people. And when I started looking into it, one of the things that was being said, well, it's these young people's bodies. They could do what they want to with their body. It's their body. This is the discussion that was going on.
Sure.
And for me, what was troubling was when you look at the communities that they started putting all these Planned Parenthood things at.
Right.
The troubling part about it is that these young girls apparently didn't have someone in their life that could help them have a certain morality meter for themselves. So that they could wake up in the morning and look at themselves in the mirror and go, I love me enough that I'm not going to go to a party, get drugged, get too high, 5 dudes run up in me in the night, and then a month later, I have this situation. And then I use Planned Parenthood as the means of birth control. And that was troubling to me.
Sure.
And that's where I was like, man, we don't know the damaging effects, especially on a young woman, when she doesn't have the proper tutelage from a male or female being brought up.
We're saying no.
So I know.
We see this because of where government feels its role has now become.
Right.
We see this because when you have a conversation, see, it's how the conversation, the questions get posed. Everything you say makes sense. We were raised to understand the consequences of our decisions. Right. We have a different train of thought. When the government entity steps in and becomes the parent, becomes the guide, you're not having conversations, you're having backup on what you're on your actions.
Right.
I'm having a really, I'm not finding the right words, but again, there is a, it might be moral for some, it might not be moral for others. It's really not for me to, neither here nor there. I have my life and my own situation. And with anything that's going in my body or out of my body, autonomy, I fully stand behind it. I don't like the government coming in and inciting in any of those roles.
Well, in Planned Parenthood specifically, like I myself was fucking bamboozled. Like they fucking bamboozled me. Like you don't know that they're trying to perform, pass legislation or perform late-term abortions, or you could give birth and then they could kill your baby. Like none of that's talked about. Yeah. It's like, no, you're poor, you're low income, you need your yearly exam, make sure you don't have cancer. They paint this pretty little picture where you're like, oh my God, that's so helpful. I need that service. And then next thing you know, you're like, holy fuck, this was founded by the goddamn devil. Like, you know what I mean? We don't know any of this
literally,
shit.
Literally.
Oh, literally. Let's all get it, forget literally on the balcony.
Devil.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, God, like, yeah.
Yeah, the look, guys.
We can talk for 6 hours.
I know, we're really good.
I get very emotional and very fired up with this kind of talk, but and I don't care if people don't like what I'm getting ready to say. They don't like it, unfollow me.
Right,
but here's the deal.
I mean, I would encourage them, they don't like what you're saying, to look at you and say something with independent thought and question, have that conversation, have that debate. Because I'm, for one, sick of just having talking points blasted at people once or another. Are we looking for solutions or not?
Right.
Are we looking for solutions? Or are we looking to argue? Because you're dealing with two dagos.
Right, because I heard
never fucking shut up.
Right. Or I didn't agree with you. What you feel is a reality. Right. But here's the reality for me. I freaking hate the Democratic Party. I know what the Democratic Party has done to my people. They have harmed Black people. They have used Black people to get horrible things done. And these horrible things now, with the leader that we have in the Dems running it, is nothing short of socialism.
Amen.
He's a dictator.
Amen.
What he is doing is unconstitutional, is unlawful. And I hope the people who voted for him realize what the hell they've just done. Because
that's why I support full facial nudity.
Yeah,
you're preaching to the choir. We feel the same exact way. And I was a Democrat. We're from Chicago. It was fucking in our soul. Like you were raised like you're a Democrat. You believe in this. Everyone.
Well, yeah, but
it's pounding in your fucking head. Obama runs.
That's the mind screw of all time. Right there is. It's indoctrinating your mindset into believing that this is the way you have to be. No, you do not have to be that.
No, I had an epiphany a couple years ago, and I was like, holy
fucking shit, like my whole fucking life.
I think in real time, Gina and I, our children, I think in real time it's been a different kind of lesson for us as well, because you get to see at a fundamental level before any words come into a child's ears what the love actually is. And then you can watch society systematically tell them how different they are and how they're not equal. I mean, Gina and I, again, I mean,
we're busting right back to fucking segregation.
I mean,
I'm married to a black man, Kevin. Where the fuck does my son go? You know what I mean? Like it's fucking insane. Like it's fucking insane.
Yeah,
I mean,
I understand.
Yeah, I mean,
check this out. Okay, so I know. Yeah, I'm loving this conversation.
We're gonna have you on. We're having you on weekly.
Okay, but check this out.
Just so you know,
this gets deep too.
Lay it on us.
When you look at the segregation and the racist, what I would call privilege card demeanor that is going on in this country, this goes back to something that the Brits had established here when they first came here and had their 13 colonies.
Yep.
A lot of people don't want to go back to this historical fact, but there were white European people who were slaves right along with the Africans before this became America.
Right.
And what happened was they had two major uprisings. The first one, pretty bad. The second one, those slaves almost took over the colony. That's when the British at that point said, we have to do something about this. Now, the British throughout history have been some of the most cunning, strategic people as a country as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times they didn't have to go to war. They planted a spy or someone in someone's camp and poisoned their mind, and they didn't even have to go in and kill them.
I mean, land-wise, they still own majority of the land, correct? I mean, they are countries. They still got their foot in most of them.
Well, we're following the same path. We're at war of the minds right now.
Oh, yeah. So check this out. So the British created this thing of white and black.
Right.
At that point, and follow me on this, there's no such thing as white. This is a made-up term by the British during that time to separate.
This is white. This is fucking white. No, I don't look like this.
Right. And see, here's the thing about this. If you meet someone that's European from one of those countries, call them white, they'll go, no, I'm German.
Yeah, I'm Italian, I'm Greek, right.
They'll say, no, I'm French, or I'm Scottish, or I'm Italian. I'm
Kevin, I just filled out an application where it said, it was the weirdest thing ever because I never seen it like this before. It was race, and it was white was the race. We're not even Caucasian anymore. It was white, Indian, Latino, whatever. And then ethnicity. And I thought, oh God, like I'm Italian, German mostly. I'm a German, Italian. Like, where does this, why is it relevant? You know what I mean? Two, are you asking where I come from? Because my ancestors come from Italy and Germany. So right. What socioeconomic situation am I helping you with here? You know?
Well, you know what? Looking at what they did, create separating, and when they called these Europeans, they referred to them as white, gave them better privileges from the African people. It created a situation. And so then when the colony actually became America through the Independence War, those slaves that were now free from the tyranny of Britain kept the white-black issue going. Why is that still in existence to this day? If you are born, bred, or even if you come here and you go through the legalities to become an American, you should simply just be an American. As an American, we all come in different flavors, different backgrounds, different things, and your application, like what you were just saying, it should simply say,
American.
Are you an American citizen?
Or non-American, period. And by judging by your character of what they feel you represent during that interview should be the means of how you get the job.
We're indoctrinated to be sensitive to struggles and other things. on one hand, you don't want to be ignorant. There are some factual situations here across our history that do have impact. Do we decide how to move forward together to understand what is relevant now, today, moving forward? How do we heal? How do we go forward? How do we get to that where we're American and we don't have this sub-demographic of who we are? How do we get
there? We have to put the pressure on the government. We the people, have to put the pressure on the government for them to stop using and profiting off of division. And look, division is big business. Look, at the end of the day, it's all about this big business, keeping people divided. The Democratic Party is one of the #1 parties that have always backed separation of the classes.
Right. It goes back to Alexander the Great. That's the motto: divide and conquer.
Right. Well, in division, you have a Black person more worried about what the white guy is not giving him or keeping him from accomplishing than looking at the government and going, what are you doing that's the ultimate mind fuck that's causing me not to be able to do what I need to do? Because at the end of the day, you know, they say one thing, they do another. And you know, and I'm gonna get in trouble for this one too. But that's how I feel. That's how I feel about modern day big churches. They're not doing their job.
No.
If you look at what the Son of God asked the church to do and what we should do towards one another, really look at churches and go, are they really living up to what that man, when he was on earth, asked for us to do?
Whatever happened to lift up a rock, you'll find me there. You know, the kingdom is not made by human hands, right? Like whatever happened to the spirit of what that is? I actually had this argument earlier today because it was, you know, about, you know, what would Jesus be looking back at? Like, you know, if Jesus died knowing what he knows now today, would he do it because of how we act right now? You know? Kind of a weird, you know, hypothetical. But the reality is that he, you know, if you follow that logic, he did do that because he understood the human nature of things and wanted to carve a path for us for salvation, right? Knowing that humans are inherently sinners in the eyes of why we're here. So you know, there's that, you know what I mean? But it gets lost in message because, again, we have this idea of society needs government, a governing body, that we can't survive and figure these things out on our own. We need to be socialized. We need to be structured, grouped, categorized, tagged, marked, you know, and driven through life for the system to work.
Yeah, and that's
I didn't realize how
just one day you just say this, what the fuck happens, man?
Right.
We just say this and what happens? You lose everything. Everything fucking crumbles to the ground. We go to ground zero and we come back with our true intended purpose. You know what I mean?
Well, you know, look at what's happening now. Freedom of speech is gone unless you create your own platform, right, where people can hear these opinions and talk freely. Look, this is where I sit. You know, you look at Facebook, Instagram. If you say something that goes against the liberal or dim web, it seems like you are put in Facebook jail. Right? Like, okay, for example, if I went on and I put up a sign that says F Joe Biden, I'm gonna get put in Facebook jail. That's the real of it, right?
Let's go, Brandon.
or even if I put up a, hey, I wanted to quote a Bible scripture or something. There's a plausibility that that's going to be seen offensive, and I'm going to get put in Facebook jail. This is what's going on right now.
We're like, tell us to our face, motherfuckers.
I spent 10 years building a Facebook community, literally 10 years for the hemp and the cannabis activism, just education. I'm not selling shit, just education on this plant. Lived in fucking Facebook jail. I have over 50,000 followers I can't ever, interact with. We can't talk to each other. I'm in jail all the time. So past January, I'm like, fuck it, all 50,000 people, goodbye. Like I can't.
Well,
I can't
and that's dictating. That is dictating. Look, I get so upset at this stuff because I'm like, look, man, this ain't cool. That's why I completely, my profile is still there, but I quit doing the Facebook thing.
Yeah,
well, you're in a good place.
Like Facebook, you know what I mean?
You're in a good place. You're in a good place with music because it's still kind of one of the last standing arts that you have more wiggle room, right? Like there's some weird inherent protection that nobody really fucks with too much. They won't buy your shit, but they're not fucking your availability to say it. Every artist that touches politics, religion, gender, race, whatever, they all fall in this category, but their music still plays. You know what I mean?
Right.
I don't know where in our lifetime that we're gonna ever meet people that can literally have an argument with us about our right not to say anything. We deal with those people all day long.
Right.
They literally, they drink of the government's tit in this understanding and this concept that this is, my freedom of speech has borders and whatever. Call me an asshole or a bitch when I'm done talking. Don't stop me from talking.
Right.
Judge me all you want.
But I'm getting my point across.
Right. You stopping me tells me you're afraid of me. And watch what happens when you do that with me. Watch what my reaction is.
Right. And see, what's dangerous is what the government is trying to tell you is you have to accept everyone and everything, and that's wrong.
No, the fuck you don't. Right.
Look, that's wrong. Here's the thing about that. You
don't need to hate people that you disagree with. You can just
that's right. And this is what I don't like. Yeah. Like for example, I don't wake up in the morning and walk out my front door and go, "Hey world, I'm black, love me." But we have that's bullshit. We have groups of people that have positioned themselves in very powerful places.
Yeah.
And they have worked it to where you have to accept their thing. If I was to say, I don't live and approve of that lifestyle, I'm not out trying to hang you by a rope.
Right.
Live and be who you want to be. But don't try and force me to believe or go, hey man, that's cool. That's not cool for me.
Or try and teach our kids that maybe they're not a boy or a girl. What the fuck?
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Welcome to the nation.